it appears that there was a coup attempt, another coup attempt in Burkina Faso. That's right. People have been coming for Ibrahim Traore for quite some time. This guy has survived multiple assassination attempts, and we'll get into why they're coming after him. But this story, I think, needs more attention. Burkina Faso reports foiled coup attempt linked to a former leader. Yeah, it's a big one. So this is Ibrahim Traore. And he basically, had this mindset that I don't want the West in Burkina Faso anymore. Basically told France, told Macron, get out of here. You're not going to take our resources anymore. And we're going to build on our own. And he's been able to do quite a bit since then, which I'll get into as well. And the West doesn't like that so much. They also don't like this alliance that he has with Mali. And what's the other one we have here? The AES alliance. They also don't like that. They don't like the fact that he has been shaking hands with Vladimir Putin, that he's willing to work with Russia. You guys know how this goes. But there was another attempt against him. Burkina Faso's defense and security forces reportedly thwarted a coup attempt on the night of January 3rd, with authorities arresting several suspects allegedly linked to a former interim president, Paul-Henri Damiba. According to local media reports and regional news outlets, the plot uncovered on January 3rd led to the arrest of several suspects, including an alleged mastermind described as a known associate of Damiba. One second, excuse me, I have to clear my who briefly ruled Burkina Faso in 2022 before being ousted by the current leader, Captain Ibrahim Traore. The operation was foiled thanks to timely intelligence that allowed authorities to act swiftly, according to Central News in South Africa. So let's chime in here for just a second. January 3rd. Wasn't January 3rd the same night they went and kidnapped Nicolas Maduro? Wasn't that the same? So we're looking at multiple overthrow events here, ladies and gentlemen. Like I said, they have been after Ibrahim for quite some time. They want him out of there. The moment that he said that the West has to get out, that France, you cannot stay here any longer and steal our resources. Your soldiers have to go. The moment that took place, the West said, oh no, we got to come after this guy. And guys, pay close attention to what's happening in Somaliland as well, which isn't far from Burkina Faso and Mali as well. The West really does not like this alliance that these countries have, that AES alliance, where they have decided no Western intervention. We are going to run our countries ourselves, and we'll do better without you here. And that also leads to Israel as well, not just the United States, not just Europe, but also Israel, which now has made it very clear that they recognize Somaliland as an independent country. The only first one to do that. So they're going to go and build a base in Somaliland, and they're going to try to make their way closer and closer to Burkina Faso because they want to shut down that type of resistance. They want people who are going to bend the knee to the West and, of course, to the Zionist entity. Goes on to say here, following reports of the foiled attempt, hundreds of Traore supporters, often called the Wayignans, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, mobilized. During the night of January 3rd and into January 4th, demonstrators occupied roundabouts and public squares, affirming their intention to form a popular barrier against any attempt to overthrow the government. Put it here. And that is essentially what these coup attempts are. That is essentially what these coup attempts are, to overthrow that government. They want them out. They want a Western puppet in there that is going to do their bidding. And Ibrahim Traore is not that person. And they know it. The Sahel Solidarity Campaign Network, SASCAN, a Pan-African advocacy group, issued a statement on January 4th condemning what it described as the latest attempt to overthrow Burkina Faso's government. The organization characterized the incident as involving foreign mercenaries and led by Dememba, though these claims have not been independently verified. So this attempt failed. Ibrahim Traore is still alive. And what I've noticed about him as well, his people really stand up for him. They really fight for him. They're there to protect him because they said, listen, he's building for us. He's doing things for us. And I want to get into that to show you all the things that they've been able to do now that they got the West out. The reality is the West doesn't want a country to be sufficient and to sustain on its own. The West really wants a country that is going to go along with Western agenda. And any other country that's not willing to do that is seen as an enemy. So they'll come up with a reason, give it a couple years from now, they'll come up with a reason to go in and try to overthrow Ibrahim Traore as well. They'll probably tell you he's a dictator. They'll probably tell you that he's a terrorist. We've seen this playbook multiple times before. But what these countries want is to be independent from the West. Sounds similar to Libya and Gaddafi. He wanted to be independent, and they don't really like that. Now, this guy, I want you to show you what this guy said here about some of the things that Ibrahim has been able to accomplish. Check this out.
After his mobilization of the population, many rebel groups would answer his call, and this increased both his influence and his military strength. Together, these groups would effectively curb most of the terrorist activities and influence in the country. Because of this, over 2 million displaced Burkinabés who were driven out of their homes in previous years were able to return and actually resume normal lives. The new young leader would also spearhead numerous infrastructure projects, building regional roads and cross-country highways for the first time ever.
For the first time ever. So once he was able to get them out, get the West out, he was building regional roads and highways for the first time ever. So this is what I was saying before. Leave these countries alone and they will thrive. They fall apart when the West intervenes. Haiti is a perfect example of that, I think. So he is creating a thriving Burkina Faso. Now, that's not something, of course, that the U.S. wants. If we look at something called the Wolfowitz Doctrine, it says that no other country is allowed to become more powerful than the United States, or even try to get to that point. And that's part of the reason why the U.S. government has such this vitriol towards China and Russia, because they've become powerful and also economically powerful. And according to the Wolfowitz Doctrine, that's not supposed to happen. So any other country, this is why I'm warning everybody about, that tries to do it on their own and does not want to bend the knee to Western agenda is going to be seen as a target. Listen to what else he's been able to do there.
Roads that took people to people, not just gold out of the country. He also built the country's first independent state bank in 2024.
Ding, 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 ding. Let's go back here. That is the big nugget. That's the big golden nugget. They were able to build the country's first independent bank. And the banks are everything. Imagine that. We have our own bank. We're not relying on these banks from the West. Remember what I told you before about the Rothschilds banks, how Venezuela didn't have a Rothschild bank? Like, this is a big deal. So they're able to control their money, at least for now. But they're still trying to get this guy out. Let's go on here.
Gold out of the country. He also built the country's first independent state bank in 2024, which the gold is something that I'm going to need to go ahead and mention here right now, because another reason that people love him within the country is how he approached the nation's gold mining industry, because gold mining accounts for a whopping 12% of the country's entire GDP. And when it comes to the amount of gold mined, the country is in the top 10 in the world. But it hasn't always been the benefit of that kind of status. For the entire history of gold mining industry in the country, they never had a single gold refinery. This is because France wanted to enrich itself and not its colonies. I mean, after all, they're going to want to keep that kind of dependency relationship. So, in November of 2023, Burkina Faso's Council of Ministers would approve the construction of the country's first gold refinery. The country is Africa's fourth largest producer of gold, yet in the past, all the gold mining and exports were managed by colonial rulers. In fact, aside from the roads into and out of Ouagadougou, some of the only roads that the French ever built in the country while they ruled it were roads leading into and away from the gold mines.
So the gold mines were managed by the West. And we've seen this before, right? Where it's your resources, it's your country, but the West has come in and they have decided that they are going to control and manage those resources. I say Haiti again, because I do think Haiti is another good example, and sometimes it's overlooked. If you look back at the history of Haiti, and you'll know that even like Woodrow Wilson went into Haiti like way back in the day, and he brought in the US Marines and they decided to take control in Haiti. Now, when they came there to occupy Haiti at that point in time, they also took control of their banking. So like when people say that Haiti is poor, I'm like, well, Haiti is rich in resources, but you also had US intervention there multiple times, even to the point where they're like, we're going to control your banks. So I ask this question again, how can you grow and thrive when you have constant disruption from the outside? How can you grow and thrive? Let's continue on here.
And the only roads that led to other countries and crossed the border had been constructed solely for the purpose of sending more gold to France. A few months later, Traore would essentially nationalize the country's entire gold mining industry. This marked a significant development in Burkina Faso's gold sector because previously the gold was mined and the raw ore was trucked out again to be refined by others. Traore seeks to gain more control over the country's gold resources by refining the gold domestically rather than exporting unrefined materials, boosting jobs within the country as well as reducing outside dependencies. This would increase government revenue and economic benefits from the gold sector. The new refinery Traore had built created over 100 new jobs and 5,000 new indirect jobs, with the refinery producing around 400 kilograms of gold daily.
Over 100 new jobs. So do you see what happens? Like, no, he doesn't need the West to do that. So when you hear this propaganda where the West says we have to go in and help the people and liberate the people, you see how much better off the people are when you don't have that intervention? Created new jobs and also indirect jobs. So the way I see it, he's winning. The way I see it, Burkina Faso is winning right now. And yeah, the West will look at that as a threat because they don't have control over it. They're totally fine with you doing okay as long as they have control over the resources. They never wanted to get to the point where you can sustain on your own and you don't need them for anything. And I do think Gaddafi is a great example of that. Someone who wanted to move away from the West and said, you know what, I think we kind of want to have our own currency here, kind of do our own thing. Yeah, so then they had to come up with this lie and tell you that Gaddafi was killing his own people. And then they went after him. And we all know that story about how they killed him in front of everybody. They sodomized Gaddafi in front of everyone. And so we all know they'll come up with a reason. And we need to keep talking about Burkina Faso. We need to keep talking about Mali because it will only be a certain time for now. Before you hear the US government say, we got to go into Burkina Faso because Ibrahim Traore is a dictator. We got to go into Burkina Faso because Ibrahim Traore, he's killing his own people. So prepare yourself because I feel like it's only a matter of time.
He also required foreign companies to give the Burkinabe government at least a 15% stake in local operations, a number which will likely continue to rise. And if that number surpasses 51%, then he will have actually nationalized the gold industry in his country, which
you hear that?
Which is considerably a harder task to accomplish than it seems on paper.
So right now, Ibrahim Traore is on board. He's on the path to nationalize gold in his own country. Now, believe it or not, gold is still worth something. And that is not something that the West wants to hear. France is pissed. Macron is not happy that they don't have access to the resources in Niger anymore either. France was robbing Niger blind because Niger has a lot of uranium. So people ask these questions, how do they have all these resources, but the people there are so poor? You'd be poor too if someone was coming in from the outside and they were taking everything. So you could be sitting on a gold mine, but if you don't have access to it, you're going to be poor too. Right? Now, there's another thing about Ibrahim that I want to bring up as well. Again, the AES, this relationship is incredibly important here. A marriage of three. Will Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso bloc reshape the Sahel? Let's go ahead and get into this here. So here they are. These are the lead. They're, again, trying to lead their countries, trying to do their own thing. They're not asking the West to come in and help them with anything. They're like, we got this. We got it. Right? So if we go on here, late December, and we had just taken an Air Burkina flight to Dakar, Senegal, across the Sahel, where a storm of political upheaval and armed violence has unsettled the region in recent years. Mali sits at the center of a reckoning. After two military coups in 2020 and 2021, the country severed ties with its former colonial ruler, France, expelled French forces, pushed out the UN peacekeeping mission, and withdrew its alliances. Alongside Burkina Faso and Niger, now also ruled by military governments backed by Russian mercenaries, it formed the AES in September 2023. Together, the regional grouping withdrew from the wider economic community of West African states bloc, accusing it of serving foreign interests rather than African ones. This month, the leaders from those three countries converged in Bamako for the Confederal Summit of Heads of State of the AES, the second such meeting since the alliance was formed. So these guys decided to come together. And this goes back to this idea of a multipolar world, right? Which we talked about before, where you are seeing, and it's not just BRICS, but BRICS is a big part of it, but you're seeing people in other countries form an alliance outside of the West and say, how about all of us work together and let's not bend the knee to what the Western powers want? We're seeing more and more of this. So there's the AES. I mean, they're not a part of BRICS. So there's different types of coalitions that are happening where they're deciding to do what's best, what they feel is best for their people. And speaking of that, this is something else that you need to see. All three of those countries have decided to walk away from the ICC, the International Court. And I want you to hear the reason why they want to walk away from it. Let's go ahead and bring in this video here.
Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger say that they are withdrawing from the International Criminal Court. The three West African countries accuse the ICC of being a, quote, instrument of neo-colonialist repression, saying that it only targets less privileged countries. They said they will no longer recognize its authority. Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso are all led by military governments, and those three governments have said that they will set up what they called indigenous mechanisms in its place.
Now, let's just pause here for a second. You know why they want to walk away from the ICC? Because the ICC can't even hold Israel accountable. They make their claims and they say they must do their best that they can to, prevent genocide, but they can't really do anything. They can't make them stop doing what they're doing. And to their point, what they have seen is that the ICC tends to target those that are from countries like theirs. They don't tend to hold the West accountable, is basically what they're saying. So they are seeing the writing on the wall. And they're seeing that the ICC basically just serves the West, the European countries, and America. They basically just serve them and do what's best for them. That includes Israel too, by the way. So they can write a statement. They can make a statement and say they must do everything in their power that they can to prevent a genocide from happening, but they don't really force them to do anything. And then on top of that, I mean, how many times have you heard politicians right here in the United States say, yeah, well, the ICC can't do anything to Israel. It doesn't really matter. So now they're deciding to walk away from that. What do you think about that? Let's go on a little bit more here.
Al Jazeera's Nicholas Hack reports from Dakar in Senegal.
An instrument of neo-colonial repression in the hands of imperialism. Those are the cutting and strong words used in a joint statement from the Sahel countries. They say that the International Criminal Court delivers selective justice, a feeling shared by other countries in Africa, where there seems to be a disproportionate amount of Africans being prosecuted at the ICC. There's been former heads of states, politicians that have spent years in detention to be then released without charge. Now, in the statement, they say that the ICC seems incapable of prosecuting obvious crimes, crimes against humanity, war crimes, but also crimes of genocide, clearly pointing the finger to Israel without mentioning them by name.
Everybody hear that? So this is important for everyone to see, and, mark this, save this video for another time, because it will only be a matter of time before Israel is going to target them as well, because they're calling them out and they're saying, like, you have not held them accountable for genocide. So they are not on that side of the aisle. They're on the other side. Pay attention to all the countries that the government tells you that these people have bad leaders or they're dictators or so and so. And even then, like I've said time and time again, it is not our concern. Same thing with the Venezuela situation. What did I say? They were like, well, he didn't actually win the election. I'm like, that's the concern of the people of Venezuela. That's not our concern. We can't even get our own damn election straight. But we all the way over there. So keep an eye on Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger, the AES. Keep an eye on them. We will continue to monitor what they're doing. Because right now, it seems like to me, from what I've been reading and seeing, the people in Burkina Faso are happy with what Ibrahim is doing. That's why they're willing to do what they can to protect him. They're happy. They are happy. I say that again, because it's only going to be a matter of time before Benjamin Netanyahu, Donald Trump, or someone else tells you the people are not happy and that the people want him gone. So we have to note these moments now while we still can. So yeah, attempted coup against Ibrahim, same day as the kidnapping of Nicolas Maduro. And I don't think that's a coincidence. Hey guys, this was a Sabby clip. If you like what you saw, hit that like button and subscribe.